Hi Reyna, how's it going? It's me, Reyna, back at it again with another video. If you're new to my channel and you want to join the Reyna family, all you have to do is hit the subscribe button down below. First and foremost, I'm so sorry that the audio quality for this video is going to be lower than usual. I do have my microphone, but I forgot to charge it. So I promise you guys I'll get you guys a video out by today. So I'm recording it now without the microphone. I'm going to talk a little bit louder than usual because of that, so if you hear an echo, I apologize. So let's get into the video. Miss World. So Miss World is not a pageant that I usually follow that closely, to be honest, but a lot of you guys said you guys wanted a video of my favorites for Miss World so far, so I thought let me go ahead and do some investigation, some snooping, and let me follow the pageant this year for those of you guys who requested for me to do so. And I put a poll on my Instagram asking you guys what videos you guys want to see next, and as requested, I am making the Miss World predictions list now. So my prediction list is a little bit soft because I still think that we have a lot of time, or at least some time left between now and Miss World. So what I decided to do is I made a top 5 and I made a top 5 honorable mentions. So what I'll do is I'll announce my honorable mentions, my honorable 5 first. And those are people who I think, you know, I'm on the lookout for. I like them, but they haven't convinced me maybe that they could be the winner quite yet. And my top 5 are the 5 ladies in order from, you know, 4th runner-up to winner, who I think as of right now in this current moment could win. What I did was I went through all the ladies and I went through their national competitions and saw how they performed. I did not go and look up more recent interviews of the ladies who are in my honorable mentions. I only looked at the ones who were in my top 5, simply because there was already so many contestants to begin with. It would have taken me forever, and until we get closer to the finale, I don't feel like it's necessary. Because some of the people in my honorable mentions may not, again, I'm on the fence about them, so I'm not really sure. But for my top 5, I did look up some more recent interviews, and yeah, let's get into it. So these are my 5 honorable mentions. They are not my top 5. They are just girls who I think have potential, and I have them on my laptop over here. So if you see me looking over here and darting my eye, I'm looking at my laptop, so forgive me. But yeah, so my honorable mentions, we'll start in no particular order, is India. So we have India, Nandini Gupta. India to me is a really well-posed woman. She is Miss World India 2023. I don't like that India and a few other countries like Malaysia are crowning girls and titling them 2023. I know that with COVID there was a gap, but I wish they would just pause the competition and catch up to real time because it gets really confusing. But anyways, their Miss World 2023 is competing at Miss World 2025, the 72nd edition, I believe. I do like her, and the reason why I didn't put her in my top 5 but my honorable mentions is because I do think she is presenting herself very Miss Worldly, especially through her social media. I am liking her social media. She handles it way better than most Indian representatives, I would say. I'm guessing she has a team, and especially with it being Femina Miss India that is running the organization behind her campaign for Miss World. I know that they have a pretty equipped team and they have the budget to afford a team that's pretty good. And so I do like her social media. I do like what she's putting out there. I do think it's very Miss Worldly. When I think of Miss World, I think of maybe a little bit more regal, a little bit more poised, a really well-rounded woman who can speak. I think speaking and advocacy are a very big component of Miss World. And I do think that she speaks well, but I'll be honest, I wasn't blown away by her speaking. And even though I said I did not go into the honorable mentions recent interviews, I did go into Miss India's recent interviews, and I really just wasn't blown away. I thought she was good. I didn't think she was great. I wasn't blown away, you guys. And you guys know I'm being honest. I'm Indian, right? I'm part Indian, so I wouldn't sit there and, you know, say she's not a top 5 girl unless I really meant it. I just think as of right now, I'm not impressed enough that I can solidify her into a top 5 for me personally. I think she's good. I don't know if she's going to be the next winning girl for India. Moving on, my honorable mentions, I also have Ecuador. I liked Ecuador. Ecuador is a lawyer. I really liked her, the way she spoke. I like what she advocates for. She advocates, I believe, for education, because she was mentioning how children in Ecuador have been enlisted into more gang violence and how they have been pretty much forced to commit crimes, and how she has been really just providing after school activities for children. And she's actually been to India and implemented some of her her social work with, I think, an organization called Mumbai Smiles. So I really liked her work. I really like her advocacy. I think she speaks well, especially because we know a lot of the contestants typically from Latin America sometimes default to Spanish over English, or they're not comfortable with English, which is completely fine and sensible given that they live in a Spanish-speaking country, so duh. However, as we know in the past, translators in beauty pageants can sometimes be a little faulty, so her having a baseline good grasp and of English, I think is going to help her, not hurt her by any means. So I think that it's a really good thing, and I think that she speaks well and she articulates her thoughts and really well. And yeah, I like Ecuador, so I put her in my honorable mentions. I'm going to go through the honorable mentions a little bit fast for you guys. I really want to get into my top 5 and not make this video too long. So moving on from her, I put in Cameroon. I really liked Cameroon as well. I think she's really beautiful, and I think that she will make a great queen. I am not solidified for a top 5 for her, but she's really close. I'll be honest, Cameroon is close on my top 5 list, and so I can see her potentially snagging, you know, getting her way in. But I definitely think she'll make at least a top 10, or I think it's top 12 for Miss World, right? I think last year they did a top 12. Whatever it is, I think she'll make that cut potentially. I have Australia. I liked Australia as well. I think Australia is more on the fence than solidified for me. I think her speaking is good, but I think sometimes we tend to confuse someone who is fluent in English with a good speaker, and that's where I think there's a little bit of a disconnect, to be honest. I think she speaks English really well. Obviously, she's Australian. However, I think the content of what she says sometimes is lacking. However, because I think that a lot of the girls are going to try their best to speak English, because a lot of the girls just naturally do. It's not my opinion, it's just what we've seen. We see a lot of girls trying to speak English even though they're clearly not comfortable with it, and because of that, they're unable to articulate their thoughts really well. So therefore, women who do speak English natively tend to have an advantage because they can articulate their thoughts in that language a lot more smoothly rather. And so I think that Australia will have an advantage for that. And I don't think that her content is bad by any means. I just think it could be more thought-provoking and more heartfelt, which is really what we're looking for Miss World in specific. They really look for women who can articulate well their thoughts and their advocacy and their feelings and their sentiments towards different subject matters. But in addition, they're also looking for someone who is very queenly and has who speaks from the heart. And so I think for Australia, I'm lacking that speak from the heart component, and that's what I'm looking for. Next, I have the last honorable mention before we get into my top 5 is none other than Ivory Co. So I actually had to have my roommate who speaks French, both my roommates speak French, translate Ivory Co's answer for me, because I, to be quite frank, do not speak French. I know bonjour, je m'appelle Vijay, that's about it. Merci beaucoup. But that's about my French, even though I am part French. That's about as far as it goes. So my roommate is the one who told me that she answered the question really well. And I wasn't able to understand her, but I was able to still look at her communication, her nonverbal cues, and see how comfortable she was on stage. For those of you who don't know, I do have a formal degree, a bachelor's in strategic communication and analysis. So I do understand what nonverbal cues people make and how they are trying to articulate themselves nonverbally on a stage or in public speaking or otherwise. And so I was able to pick up on some really good nonverbal cues from Miss Ivory Coast or Côte d'Ivoire. And I really appreciated that. And for that reason, I think that she could be a good contestant. I think she's also very beautiful. And I would love to see her, you know, progress in the competition and go far. I would love to see her go far. So let's get into my personal top 5 so far. And again, I have just done a very baseline search through the Miss World girls. So please forgive me if my list seems a little bit wonky, or those of you guys who are, you know, Miss World fanatics do not agree with me. But again, I will do a more deep dive into the Miss World universe, Miss World verse, when I can get the when we get closer to the competition. So number 5, I have Puerto Rico's Valeria Perez. So Puerto Rico to me was just stunning. I love her bold red hair. I also love how she has not overtanned her skin. She has kept her, what I assume, her set skin tone, which I appreciate. I also just love the way she speaks. I do understand quite a lot of Spanish, and I speak it proficiently, I'd say, or at least at an intermediate level. So I was able to pick up most of what she was saying during the Q&A, and I really enjoyed her answer. I think she speaks very well and very confidently. She seemed very sure of herself. She did not seem at all fazed with the competition or have any type of stage fright that was apparent on her face. Even she had a little bit of a stumble walking up to her final Q&A, and it did not faze her. Like, you wouldn't have even known through her facial expressions and by her body language that she tripped a little bit at all if you did not see it on camera. So I was quite impressed with this young lady, and I think that she can go far, and I hope she does go far. I think she's stunning, and I would love to see Puerto Rico win another Miss World crown. So yeah, let's move on. Number 4, I have Brazil, Jessica Pedroso. So Jessica to me is quite stunning as well. I also find her quite captivating in the way she speaks, and I think that she could really make a mark on the Miss World stage. I can see her captivating the judges as well, and I have high hopes for Miss Brazil. And I don't have much more to say about her. I love the way she speaks. I love the way that she carries herself, and I just think she's very regal. She just, when I look at her, reads Miss World. So for me, number 4 is Miss Brazil. Number 3, I have South Africa's Zoelise Jansen, I believe. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing her name. Someone can correct me down in the comments below. But number 3 for me is South Africa. I was really debating with the top 3, to be honest, where to put them. For me, they were all kind of like interchangeable. My top 3 are like any one of those 3 I think could maybe snag the crown. But I almost put South Africa number 1, to be honest, but I switched her out to number 3 simply because I do think she speaks really well. I do think she's very regal in her presentation. I think she's stunning and gorgeous, so I really do love her. However, there's just something lacking. When I was listening to her Q&A, I felt like sometimes she didn't give a direct answer to the question, and I'll talk about this in a future video about some coaching tips that I have, because I do want to start making videos about pageantry in general. However, when you're doing Q&A, I do think it is important when you're given a this or that type of question, you know, do you agree with this, or do you disagree with this, and why? Pick a side. Don't straddle the fence. Pick a side and defend that side. They're not judging you based on whether you say yes or no, or at least a good judge, a fair judge should not. Unfortunately, human bias is implicit. There's nothing you can do about it. There's going to be bias, including in the judges. But your hopes are, and what the judges should be listening to, is not whether or not you pick yes or no to a question, but rather if you pick yes or no and how you defend it. So it's more important that you say yes or no to a question and you defend it well, and you back up your reason and give a validity behind why you chose yes or no to a yes or no question. For South Africa, I found sometimes that she straddles the fence. So I would love for her to be more direct in her answers and own her thoughts and her opinions. And I think if she can just do that, she'll be well on her way to winning the crown. So I would love to see South Africa just own her answer, own her choice and answer, and not straddle the fence as much, and be more confident in her choice when she makes one. I know as a beauty queen, it can be very scary to make an opinion on something or have a stance on something, but I think having a stance is what makes us powerful and empowering beings. So therefore, I recommend to any beauty queen, whether you're Miss South Africa or not, to pick a stance and go with it, okay? Number 2, so number 1, number 2 are really hard. I still don't know, but it came down. My number 2, honestly, is my sentimental favorite. So I wanted to put her as my number 1, but I didn't put her as my number 2 because she's my sentimental favorite. I put her as my number 2 because I think she is checking the boxes for Miss World on everything except for one aspect. So that's what put her in number 2 and not number 1 for me as of right now. And that number 2 is none other than Miss World Philippines, Krishna Gravitas. So Krishna, I loved her back at Miss Universe. I loved her at Miss World. Oh, I loved her when she was Miss Charm Philippines and then she dropped out. I loved her at Miss World. I did, like many others, have a little bit of concern when she entered Miss World. I wasn't sure she was gonna win Miss World Philippines because of the fact that her speaking has not been the strongest. And if you watch Miss Krishna Gravitas' interviews, you will see that she is acknowledging of this. She understands and she acknowledges that her speaking has some work to be done or needs some work done, right? And I think everything about Krishna honestly has impressed me. At first, I thought that, I don't know, I see her more at Miss World, I see her at Supra, I see her at Miss Grand. Miss World was not the competition that I would have placed Krishna in, but as of lately especially, I have seen a transformation in Krishna. I have seen that Krishna is really starting to get a hold and an understanding of that regalness that Miss World is looking for. Also, during the Miss World Philippines competition, it was apparent that Julia and the current reigning Miss World just really loved Krishna Gravitas. You could tell that they really enjoyed her presence and that they were happy with the selection committee when it came to Krishna's crowning for Miss World Philippines. So I think that it's advantageous and also a good, it shows something good, you know? And I think that the reason why I did not put her at 1 is her speaking. So I did look into, as I said, for the top 5, their current interviews or the most recent interviews that I could find for them. And for Krishna, I still think that while there is improvement in her speaking, it's just not there yet compared to my number 1 contestant, which we'll get into in a second. But when I look at her and I look at my number 1 spot, I think that my number 1 spot is miles ahead of Krishna currently when it comes to speaking ability. And so I need Krishna, for me, right? I'm not the judge, but in my opinion, Krishna needs to really focus on Q&A. She has the walking down, she has the regal appearance down, she's gorgeous. When you look at her, she's captivating. I mean, she really will stand out amongst a lot of these ladies, I'll be honest, when it comes to physical attributes and appearance. And even just her composure, her demeanor, everything about her is Miss World-like. Now, she's done a really great job of morphing herself to fit the Miss World competition, which I appreciate. But what is lacking is just the Q&A and just the speech, especially, I think it has to do with English just not being her comfort language, to be honest. Because when I sat down with my Filipino roommate and we listened to her interview in Tagalog, she's a lot more comfortable, obviously, right, in Tagalog. And so I am worried that it just might be a matter of speaking more in English. So if she decides, Krishna, if you decide that at Miss World you do want to speak in English rather than Tagalog, that is okay. That is your prerogative and your decision. I encourage you to, from here on out, just speak in English with your surroundings as it permits. Obviously, when you're in the Philippines, maybe you need to speak in Tagalog if you're engaging with your local community. And obviously you want to connect to Filipinos as well. So speaking your native tongue is good. But what I'm saying is there's nothing wrong with Tagalog, but pick one. If you're going to speak in Tagalog at Miss World, then speak in Tagalog. But if you're going to speak in English at Miss World, you need to practice English more. And the best way to get better and have more proficiency in a language and being more comfortable in a language is by practicing it, which means that when you're in the privacy of your home with your friends who also know English, speak in English with them. I remember that Celeste Cortesi said in an interview that when she went to Miss Universe, her roommate was Italy. And as you guys know, Celeste Cortesi, Miss Universe Philippines 2022, is Italian. But she told Miss Italy, I want to speak in English, so no Italian, English only. That's because she wants to be proficient and comfortable in English, right? Because she knows she's not the strongest in it. So for you, I recommend the same. If you want to speak in English at Miss World, that's fine, it's your choice. Start practicing it, because I think you're just not comfortable. So you have the thoughts in your head, but you don't know how to articulate them when it comes to English. So I would recommend that for Miss Krishna, and she will be honestly number 1. It's really her own self that will stop her from getting the crown for the Philippines. Okay, so who's my number 1? It's not India. So, okay, she wasn't even in my top 5. It's not Philippines, and she's my sentimental favorite. So who is my number 1 as of right now? I think you guys are going to be very surprised. Or maybe you won't. I don't know. But before I say that, a few other honorable mentions. I'm not going to talk about them, but before I say my number 1, a few other ones that I kind of liked and had my eye on were Chile, Ireland, Jamaica, Malaysia, Vietnam. So those were a few other girls that I liked, but I didn't put in my honorable 5 or in my top 5. But I still like them. I still have my eye on them. So those are some countries. Indonesia as well. I heard some good things about her. I haven't looked into her too much because I just off the bat wasn't too interested. So yeah. But my number 1 is none other than USA, or Miss World America, as I believe is her official title. So Miss USA or America World, Athena Crosby is my number one pick. I think Athena, I believe she's a dual citizen of Venezuela as well. She is, first of all, gorgeous. Her eyes, oh my God, how beautiful, right? But she speaks so well. I've got to see some interviews of her more recently, and I mean, she just answers questions so eloquently. She's so friendly, very regal, very reminiscent of what I would think of as a Miss World, to be honest. When I think of a Miss World, Athena pops up in my head. And the only person who I think of as Miss World besides her is Miss World Philippines. But Athena's speaking abilities and capabilities are just, honestly, they're beyond Krishna at this very moment. And so because of that, I put her above Krishna Gravitas simply due to the Q&A. If Krishna had the same speaking ability, I think I would probably say that Krishna could snatch the crown. But at present moment, Athena is doing an amazing job all around. I like her styling. I like the way that she's very queenly. I love her eyes, so beautiful. And I don't know if she can speak Spanish. I'm assuming she can because she's a dual citizen of Venezuela, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, that's going to be an advantage because the fact that you can speak to a large population of the world is never a disadvantage. So, being a multilingual queen, which I assume she is, I'm not sure, it's not confirmed, I think that's only going to help her. And she just speaks so well. Honestly, you guys, her speaking really, I'm looking at speaking more than anything for Miss World and the regal presentation, the aura that the woman has, because speaking is such a big component, and advocacy as well. I think Athena does a really good job of talking about her advocacy. Also Krishna as well, I forgot to mention that for Miss World Philippines. I love her advocacy, but going back to Athena, I think Athena does a really good job talking about her advocacy. I would like to hear a little bit more about it and her, loop it in a little bit more to her interviews, to be honest, but I still think she does a good job. And whenever a question is poised to Athena, Miss World America, she does not stutter, she does not hesitate. I barely see her think. I'm sure she is thinking these answers through and these responses through, but it just seems so natural. And it's a pleasure to watch her speak. And yeah, I think that she can really bag the crown. So that's it, you guys. That's my video. Not much editing for this video, not for today's. And yeah, I'm going to make a video about Miss Reyna Hispanoamerica as well, my favorites for that competition. And I'm also going to do a general pageant tips video coming from someone with a background and a degree in communications who also has some experience within marketing and public speaking engagements. So if you guys want to be on the lookout for that, then subscribe to my channel. If you want to join the Reyna family, subscribe to my channel. Guys, please make sure when you leave comments in the comment section down below that they're constructive and not destructive, because it doesn't help anybody if you're just like, you suck. That's not constructive criticism. Explain why you have the criticism of the contestant that you do, and make sure that it's done tastefully, because that's what we're about in the Reyna family. We're about saying things honestly and bluntly, but kindly. If you guys like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please, again, if you want to join the Reyna family, hit the subscription button down below. Comment below down your thoughts and who you want to see at Miss World. Who are you mad at me about for not ranking #1? Because I know some of you guys are mad. And yeah, and put down what you guys want to see in the future. Oh yeah, and help me out with Miss World rankings. Like, give me your guys' rank. Like, legitimately, comment your rankings down below, because I'm not super familiar with Miss World. I've never really followed it from like beginning to end. This is my first time really getting into Miss World, and I'm doing it for you guys. So help me out by putting your guys' thoughts, and don't be biased, please. Like, tell me your raw thoughts on who you think will be like who's doing well and who's not. Who on my list is like, girl, what are you talking about? Like, let me know in the comments. I need to know, because it's gonna help me as well. Of course, I'm still gonna formulate my own thoughts and opinions, but it helps me when I get feedback from you guys, who you guys are also on the lookout for, so I can keep that in mind. All right, bye. Oh, let me do my thumbnail now. No, forget it. I don't want to do this thumbnail. Ugh.